Hello and welcome to the Discover History YouTube channel, and tonight what we've done is brought in another piece of armour for you. What we tried to do with our lockdown videos is have a nice selection of videos, be it military or social history, as the two main topics. Yes, we also add in there local history to Worcester, obviously medical history as well, which is a topic that we cover quite a bit of, but really we try and do the two main topics of social history and military history. And if you go through the playlist, you'll be able to see those designated under there. We have done in the past, for example, on social history, topics such as how you manufacture cloth, for example, or we also did one on tableware in the Roman period, looking at Samian ware and that sort of thing. But when it comes to military, you will also notice in there we've done topics, for example, the Lee Enfield rifle, and Ian also did one on the on part of the Battle of Waterloo. So we like to have a mixture, and what is really important, as we always say, is it's as much your channel as it is ours. So do let us know, and remember we cover any age from Stone Age to 1950s. So if it comes under that and it goes under the topic of social or military history, just let us know what you would like to see. We have got a bit of a list forming, and like I said, we'll do those as we go on, and we'll also throw in some of the ones that we want to do as well, enjoyable ones, something that we've taken out of our store, for example. So tonight's video is a piece of armour that we've brought out of our store, dusted it off, and we're about to show it you, and is a helmet that would have been used, as I always say, in that transitional period between medieval and really the 17th century. And it's what we would usually classify in this country as the Tudor period, really. So anything from the reign of really Henry VII, but more importantly Henry VIII, and then running all the way through to Elizabeth I. But this helmet also covers just outside those areas as well. This helmet is very much one stereotypical of the 16th century. So like I said, the Tudor period. However, saying that, it was used outside those brackets as such. So that is a helmet that is known as a Burgeonet. Now these are sometimes known as Burgundian sallets as well. And that's because they were very common at the end of the 15th and into the 16th century by mercenary soldiers. For example, the Burgundians, who seem to be hiring themselves out as hired heavies or hired mercenary pikemen for a very, very long time. And this was their style of helmet. But saying that, the style was in use in Britain as well, by British people, by Englishmen, Scotsmen, Welshmen. And in the 16th century, this is quite a common helmet to see, if you could afford it, because as with everything that involves the military, soldiers had to pay for their own arms and equipment, really. So this would be a pretty expensive helmet, and it's a helmet that gives quite a bit of protection for the head. It's made out of iron, and Burgonets were usually consisting of a helmet that covered a large portion of the head. So as I turn it around, you will see what I mean. So it has plates that come down the side, so it comes right down against the face. Very tight fitting, to be fair. It's also got a small plate that runs along the neck, just of there. And the other stereotypical thing about this is you usually get this plate that comes out acting like a peak, really, or a sun visor on a modern cap, for example. And they usually have quite a high crest or comb running around the top. And this is quite an important feature, as we spoke about when we were looking at the armour of a pikeman, because this acts like a morion peak or morion comb, and that strengthens the helmet. If it was just metal plate, it wouldn't be so strong. So it actually gives a lot of strength to the helmet. But when you hear or read about a Burgonet, that's what you're talking about. That is the design of helmet. And like I said, it started life a lot of the time with foreign mercenaries, like the Burgundians, for example. And it was copied in the 16th century by people that fought in the militias, because remember there was no standing army. Those raised for royal guards, royal protection for the monarchs, for example. And we know that these were used outside that bracket of the 16th century, because these were also worn, and is shown in drawings, illustrations, being worn in the 17th century as well. Because usually I use this when I'm portraying a Tudor soldier, but I have been known to wear this when I've been doing the English Civil Wars, for example, when I've played an officer, because it's a very protective helmet. It's the sort of thing an ensign who carried the colour in the 17th century would have worn. And I've also worn this when I've been portraying a siege engineer in the 17th century, because they also took on a helmet that gave a lot more protection than your average pikeman's helmet. And the main reason for that is the fact that it encases the whole head. It is a very, very good helmet. Some of the very early ones often came with what is often referred to as a bever, which is a metal plate that came up here as well, which means that you have a tiny little slit to look onto the battle zone with. But they started to be taken off. They were removed quite early on, and generally the Burgeonet is just this, that helmet just of here. These helmets do get a lot of mention when you read about border reivers, and if you don't know who they are, from the late 15th century, but more in the 16th century, there was a lot of raiding going on the borders of Scotland, what we would now call the area sort of Hadrian's Wall, the lowlands of Scotland, in the reaches, the highest reaches of England. And there was a lot of families that were involved in border reiving. So you would have Englishmen would raid into the lowlands of Scotland, steal cattle, for example, burn a village, burn a house to the ground, and then a couple of weeks later the Scots would do the same sort of thing. It was a lawless land, the north, a bit like Wales and England was for a long time. But the border reivers is quite an interesting topic in its own right, and you often see border raiders wearing these, be it Englishmen or Scotsmen. You sometimes see them being worn by men on horseback, which was quite a common feature of border reivers, but you also see foot soldiers wearing them. But personally, it is an absolutely fantastic helmet. Now, this one has been made in the exact same way as the original one, including the lacing that is being used to hold it on, and we've even got on here a maker's mark, which is what you would also see on an original helmet. Because as we always say, when we use props, and trust me, we use a lot of props, until the Victorian period, most of the items we use are actually replica, and the replica items that we use are very, very accurate, even down to maker's marks, for example, just to get people to be able to handle and see something that looks original, but we know it's not going to be damaged by, for example, grease or sweat on the hands, for example. So, as I said, this is a fantastic helmet, and it does cover the whole head. It gives a huge amount of protection. Now, I will just model it for a second, just so you can see what I mean. The reason why I'm not going to model it for too long is not because of its weight. It's down to the fact that I haven't got a hat on underneath, so it's not going to fit that well. But the other reason, it's very difficult to talk to someone with this on, because you almost get an echo from inside. But as you can see, the side pieces open out, the ear flaps, the cheek pieces, and then you place the helmet upon the head, and then you close the sides down, locking them into place. So as you can see, it gives a full amount of a protection for the head. And if you think of the early days, they would have also had that plate on the front. But I personally like this helmet. The style of it is nice. It's a helmet that I like to wear, but only when we're doing 16th century really, and also when I do some 17th century as an officer, or something like a siege engineer. It's the only time I can get to put this on. Anyway, on that note, let us know what you would like to see. Stay safe, stay in, and remember, the weekend's coming up and we keep getting asked for crafts. We may try and do a craft on Sunday for the children that are watching. On that note then, stay safe, see you soon. Bye bye.